currently supported. And let's see here. Oh, Jasmine's just dropping some stuff in the chat for us. Thank you, Jasmine. But yes, there is basically some fields, even in Filevine, that aren't the best for conditionals. I can also share with you guys just kind of a document that will better help you guys understand this. Let's see. Um, This also kind of helps with syncing as well, because there's different ways that you can sync information into FVDA from Filevine or vice versa. So some of this, and I think this is kind of small, so I'm going to zoom in for you guys, but there is some information that we can push or do bi-directional with, or just pull in and reference. So typically, person field is a one that people like to or want to try to make conditionals off of. Like, say, if it was a certain medical provider, let's include this paragraph or something like that. Currently, the person or person list field, you can't filter off of those because it's such an open-ended option or things that you can actually put into there that you're not able to really filter on it. And some of these also, too, when it gets down into like currency or amount, if we can pull one in here, I think we have an amount. Let's see. Yeah, let's just pull in our settlement amount here. So if we also wanted to add a complex condition to only have this show for settlement amount, I'll kind of show you guys what those look like. You have a little bit of a different drop-down options. So you can see previously when we were doing service type, you have these four options. But now that we're referencing a number or currency or anything that has to deal with that, you have these different options. You can have is equal to, is less than, greater than, between. So those are kind of some different ways that you can filter. And what I've done for some clients in the past too is a lot of times maybe in documents, specifically it's having to do with policy limits, right? Or damages over a certain amount. You want to show different paragraphs in your document when it's, say, $1 million case versus $100,000 case, right? So you can kind of build that in to say this is less than, $25,000 or $100,000. This paragraph will show up if this was pulling in from the settlement amount, or any other amount there. If you're doing kind of like a damages amount, you could kind of do the same thing. But basically you could set that up to just say 25, oops, 25,000 if you want, or something like that. So you have the options when it is a number to filter in a little bit of a different way, but still, obviously make conditionals here. What else? You can filter off of multi-select fields in Filevine, but it typically only lets you select one of those options and won't let you say, option 1, 2, and 3. So it gets a little bit more complex when it's a multi-select field. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Obviously, the yes, no, the drop down are really great ones to filter off of in Filevine just because they're very rigid constraints. So it's very easy to filter and make conditionals off of there because it's either ever going to be yes, no, unknown, or it's going to be the drop down options or unknown. So that makes it really easy to filter those.
And Jordan, it looks like we have a question on complex conditions. Can
Cool.
complex conditions handle complex calculations involving multiple variables and nested formulas within the document?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's take a look at that. So the way I'm understanding this is because you can do calculated variables within your document here. So I can make a calculation in Outlaw with a formula. I believe it does more basic ones. I know you can use PIMDOS, obviously, or order of operations, however you want to call it, kind of going through and putting in that formula. And if you have like, parentheses around this portion saying to do it first, and then it's going to be like subtracted from the next portion, you can definitely do that. But as far as complex conditionals within there, I don't think you would be able to add in like a number. Let me see if I can add in my variable that I just made here, this test variable, and see if it'll let me pull it in. Because then if we could pull in this calculated formula that we have, then you would be able to essentially do what you're asking, I believe. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. So tell me if I'm way off base there. But it does look like we can. So we could build out a formula. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we could build out a formula depending on what it is. I know we can't do exponents or some other things like that. But I mean, if it was like 1 minus, let's say, the settlement amount or something, settlement amount in Filevine, and let's just say we're gonna like put parentheses around it. This is just kind of a nonsense equation, but that's what we're working with. And then say maybe we wanted to multiply this times 100. We can hit update here. You can see that that formula is good because that turns to black. So that means that that's going to actually calculate something for us. And then you can filter on it. So we could say, hey, I only want this paragraph to show up when this is equal to a certain amount, or is less than, or is greater than, or something like that. Or you could say, is not equal to a certain number. So I think you could do it depending on what exactly. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I guess if you have a certain, obviously, formula or way you're trying to do a complex condition in mind, feel free to email us afterwards and we can always help you troubleshoot that as well. Perfect. I guess that's kind of a good segue also into calculated fields. So this is a relatively new release. This came out right around the same time as the settlement calculator. If you guys aren't familiar with that, please let us know after the call. We're happy to, give you some documentation or help you set that up as well. But basically, it's the kind of same thing in Filevine, right? You have calculated fields that you can make. You can make numbers or currency, I think percentages maybe too. So same principle here, right? It's just kind of what we did. You can insert different formulas and they don't have to be outlaw variables. So or Filevine variables. So let's say we made this one and let's just call this amount. Well, not that one. Well, it's already there. We'll use it. So this is an outlaw variable, right? This is something that we fill in. So we can then come back to our formula here and say we want to do settlement amount minus that future pain and suffering amount, which is a currency. And then basically that's going to calculate a Filevine connected field and an outlaw variable together to come up with whatever formula you're doing. So it is pretty nice to insert those because I might have gone a little quickly. You're going to do the same thing of when you insert a normal variable. Here's our outlaw variables. Here's our connected variables. And then basically what you're going to do is just hit Shift 5 or the percent symbol there. And as soon as you do that, you'll then be able to type in whatever you want. So this is just going to be where you name it. I would recommend naming it something that makes sense for the equation. So test is obviously kind of hard to understand what's going on there, but you could always put like, settlement amount if you were trying to calculate this. And then I would just do an in bracket, and then you'd be able to set up your variables from there. Perfect. All right. That is looking good. Maybe we'll segue in and talk a little bit about Projects AI if you guys are excited. I know like AI has been at the forefront, I feel like, of new technology. So we might as well talk about it a little bit here. But basically, Filevine has come out with a new tech that not only leverages AI fields, which AI fields would be the ones living in your Filevine, right? So think about it when you upload a medical record to your med section, You can give it some predetermined prompts and it can make a medcron. It can pull out the ICD-10 codes. It can pull out important information from those documents because, as we know, sometimes those medical record documents can be hundreds of pages long. And I don't know, I value my time. I don't really want to have to read through it, right? So it's always nice to get an overview of the specific, fields that you need to pull in or just information that you want to pull into a demand letter. So Projects AI not only references that information that lives in your Filevine when you upload those fields, but it can also actually create and generate its own paragraphs from here. So typically the way that this works is that we get a demand sample from you guys. So it'll have your actual writing that your firm likes to use. And then we can insert these different facts. So we can see here, we have a couple of examples of how you might write this out in your demand. And we put in this information exactly how it comes from your template. So we don't have to worry about changing client information or defendant information or any of that, because that's what we're doing down here. And we're actually giving the AI your writing style and then the information that lives in your Filevine for that specific case. So when we generate this, it'll be able to essentially pull in and create paragraphs and write for you. Let me see before I generate one of these if it actually has in a proofing ID. It looks like it might. We could try one and see if this will actually kind of generate a little paragraph for us, just so that you
So that,
guys can see.
sorry, Jordan, I was going to say that proofing ID that you just saw is a way for you to be able to pull data in without having to generate the document from within Filevine. It allows you to test to make sure that the document is pulling in accurately and looking how you want it to look, whether it's a demands or projects AI template or just a regular template. You can just pull the project ID in from your Filevine project, put it into here, and then that will allow you again to pull the data from that specific project so you can test to make sure that this template looks and is doing exactly what you want it to do before you publish it and have people actually generate from Filevine.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. And it's a nice testing tool, just because then obviously you don't have to clutter up your Filevine project, because I think everybody wants to try and test from a test project, right? But our test project has typically really bad data in it. It has a different defendant, a different project client. The meds might be a mess. So you're not getting like the best quality data, which then makes it hard to test and make sure that things are working. Because typically I feel like we like to fill things out. It's like, Tester McTesterson, and you can't put Testy McTesterson as like the plaintiff, defendant, primary attorney. It's just going to get really confusing which one you're referring to. So this will allow you to basically pull in the information from like maybe an already settled case or something, and you can kind of see how that data flows and everything like that. So we can test this. It might not work initially just because I might not have some of this, excuse me, some of this information filled in Filevine because, like I said, this is a test, but we can at least kind of talk about what this would look like together. So I'm going to go into our preview as over here. If you do preview as FlowWeb, it'll actually allow you to interact with this how you would in Filevine. So we can still see we have our old test one here. We don't really have to select too much of this, but we probably do want to select our insurance information. You can see I only have one insurance item in my collection section. If I had more, it would allow me to choose which one I want to include. We only have one, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and add this in. We got to select our meds. Let's add all those in. Something else fun when you're adding in these different fields, you can also filter. So if you want to filter by the provider name or maybe by the balance, you can come in here and do that as well. This is what's called a collection section table, and it does have the ability to total up the different columns here if you want to. So you can see we're totaling this medical balance here. Let's include some future meds.
And this view
A
is going
lot
to
of
look similar to the view that you see in Filevine, where once you generate it, you will have to go in and fill out items. The blue arrows are indicative of what needs to be filled out by you or by somebody else before the document is kind of good to go and in its final form.
Yeah, and you also have the ability to upload, evidence photos if you want. We're not going to do too much of that right now because we're just going to test the AI, but you do have all these options. Depending on your build out for projects AI, you might not have to fill out a lot of these. We might not opt to do that. But this is just our kind of test here. So once we've made our selections on the overview, which by the way, once you export this and this document is finalized, this will no longer show up. This is just a good way where we can like filter information and kind of like collect everything before we generate the actual document. So this will fall off. You don't have to worry about that being part of your demand or any other document. And then we go over to contract. You can see a lot of this information is already filling in. Looks like our project client might not be. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and update that. And our incident date isn't filling in. Let's just update
And
that.
similar to like DocGens, this is only going to be able to pull the information that's actually in Filevine. So if you don't have a field filled out, it won't obviously pull the data in. But as you saw, Jordan was able to change that drop down list to say pull or once, meaning, hey, for this iteration, I know something didn't pull in, but I want to be able to fill something in because I don't want to have to go, like, I don't want to have to regenerate it or whatever else your thought process is there. There are certain fields like the one Jordan just showed that had a few more options. Excuse me, which you can read. There's like a small description just below it so that you know, hey, if I'm pulling, I'm getting updates from Filevine pushed into Outlaw. If I'm pushing, whatever I'm putting into Outlaw will push into that remote location or bi-directional, regardless of where I'm updating it, that data will pull in. So those are some different options. You can do that on the template level as well, deciding kind of how you want the data or information to come into the document or go out of the document.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a great point too. And anywhere when you're reading through these, anytime it says remote, just think of remote as Filevine. So that's what that means in this case. And the nice part is because like we saw, I generated this and like I didn't have my project client filled in and I didn't have their salutation. And instead of having to close out of this, go into Filevine, update all this information about them, I can just update it right here. And I can actually just, kind of update this document so I don't have to regenerate it. So you can come in here and do that if you want to. So all of this you're going to be able to do. Now, we'll see. I believe our test case, we typically don't run the AI fields in Filevine just because it can incur a cost for us. So I'll have to see if we get anything. But typically, once you have all this set up for the AI and you've coded it out and you've connected it to the AI block here, you can just hit generate. So let's see what happens when we do that and see if we get anything. You can see that other paragraph I showed you that had like all those examples of your writing, that's not showing up here, basically because we don't want it to. That's just information we're feeding to the AI. So this is what it's saying. It doesn't have enough specifics to basically make a better paragraph than what we've given it. And that's my fault, right? Because I haven't given it enough information either in Filevine or here in Outlaw or FVDA. So really, this is all it came up with. Typically, when you come into here, you can always regenerate this if you want to, if you're not happy with the paragraph. If I regenerate again, it's going to give me something very similar because it just does not have enough information, right? It's like giving somebody a book assignment, but not telling them the book or what you want them to write about, right? So you have to make sure that you're feeding it enough information. We have to make sure that these fields are set up before it can really write out like a nice paragraph. But once we train it and give it that information, it will write out like, I don't know, 5 or 6 sentences. It can write out more too on just the facts and liability portion. But typically how we would view this is you can see that we have this facts here. We would click into here and we would delete everything from facts on, and then we would hit save. Once we hit save, this is going to basically be us accepting that we like this AI version. We want to utilize this paragraph, and we're going to keep that. If we didn't like it, we would hit regenerate. This is a different button. I think this is our liability section, maybe not the facts section. And so, but typically once you delete out any of that information, you forego the ability to regenerate that paragraph. So that's why if you don't like it, you need to regenerate initially, but don't change anything here. because yeah, that's all that would happen. But yeah, basically that's kind of what it would look like. And then obviously it gets better. We've built out some, you can do the same thing for medicals where it's going to generate like a treatment summary for all of your different meds. And also it can pull in and give an AI synopsis of like future meds that your client's going to need going forward. So we build all that out and we code it out. And part of this down here is just the pre-processing for your meds field. So this is where you would come in and select, okay, I want to have the med write about our test provider here. So it would come in, you can see that it's pulling in these different AI fields. So we have CPT, ICD-10, identify all injuries, and a medcron. So we can update that. It's going to pull in all this information. So this is where we're kind of feeding it, that information in Filevine that I didn't do previously. And then when you generate your meds, this is where it would actually be able to, write a better paragraph for us there. So it's pretty cool. It's some new technology that it's definitely been getting a lot better too, just when this came out about a year ago. So it's a lot better. And now you actually have the ability. Previously, when it came out, it was just demands as a service where um, you guys would kind of pay us and we would take care of it and turn around your demands in 48 hours. But now this is where you are just in charge of pushing your own button, generating the AI. And then if you like it, great. You can then send it off. Or if you want to keep regenerating and getting a new outcome of that paragraph, you can do so as well. So that is pretty cool. I'm gonna pause here to see if you guys have any questions on Projects AI, AI fields, and just like the demand AI portion of this. Cool. Nothing so far there. But yeah, if you guys are interested, want to learn more about Projects AI, FVDA, and like kind of what's included with that implementation, obviously you do get a full training. We build in your AI fields for you into Filevine, give you a full training on how to use them, how to use AI Docker View and Sidebar AI. And then we build out one of your demand templates. So maybe you mostly do MVA cases, then we can kind of just grab that one from you and build that out. And that whole implementation process only takes a month. So it's pretty quick and easy. You guys don't have to do any of the work. And I see we have another question here. Let me go ahead and answer this one. It
So the
says,
question is,
how
how does,
does,
oh, perfect.
you're good.
So
It
how does
says,
Projects AI handle the extraction of information from scanned documents or handwritten notes? Is it possible?
yeah, absolutely. So scan documents is all good. You do have to upload it as either like, some type of text document, maybe a PDF, Word document, something like that. And so it can handle those scanned documents. If it's images, it's not going to be able to interpret an image and what it's seeing. It strictly relies on written documents, right? So that can also be handwritten notes. I will say, if the handwritten notes are something you can't read yourself when you're looking at it, the AI is probably not going to be able to read it either. So we all know that sometimes, doctors have some questionable handwriting, and sometimes that can take a little bit longer to OCR, which is basically what happens. Yeah, exactly. It needs to be legible. So that can sometimes take a little bit longer to for the AI to just reference what's going on in there. But you can submit handwritten notes, scan documents, different things like that. Typically, it OCRs and then also gives you your output into Filevine within a few minutes. If the document's super long, maybe hundreds of pages or a few megabytes versus gigabytes, it could definitely take a little bit longer, but still probably shorter than reading it. So yeah, it can definitely handle all that. So thanks for your question. Perfect. All right. Let's see. We're almost at time. I know we kind of covered a lot. I think I went on some tangents. You guys might have tuned out, but I might just open up the rest of the time that we have here, in case you guys have any other specific questions, maybe that I missed or that you didn't have enough time to type into the chat. So I'll just kind of pause there and see what other questions we have. If not, I know we only have, about 5 or 6 minutes left. So yeah.
While we wait for those questions, I did put a few things in the chat, as Jordan mentioned. There is a link to our support plans. So if you all have any Filevine related kind of technology, whether that's Filevine, FVDA, Doc Assembly, or I'm sorry, Lead Docket, anything like that, we do offer support plans for folks that are kind of already in Filevine or in any of these systems and have them up and running. Um, our free help is every Wednesday. The topics do rotate. So if you wanted to catch any additional ones, and then we do record so you and your staff can rewatch or watch some of our training videos. Jordan is phenomenal at creating videos, especially uh, related to FVDA. So we do have some recordings that Jordan has made specifically for FVDA that are a little bit shorter than this recording here today. So if there are certain items that you had questions about, it's under that Doc Assembly, FVDA, Outlaw, they're all the same thing. So you'll see a ton of videos there that again Jordan has put together to kind of help assist you there. And then I also put our email addresses in the chat. So if you all do want to engage in any of those services or have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us and we can get you connected to the correct people to help out with that. And then again, a link straight to our FVDA implementation page that if you do have this and you are looking for help and or assistance with FVDA or Doc Assembly, we can definitely help you out there, whether it's training or just building out documents. Sometimes you either A, don't have the time or there's some complex items within your document that you need additional assistance with. And so we're definitely here to help and here to help make your FVDA run as smoothly and successfully as possible.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for all that, Jasmine. And we also do have we have a QuickBooks integration, and we also have a CPA team in-house that actually specializes in just like law firm bookkeeping and anything like that. So if you have any questions on that as well, we can definitely connect you with those folks. I don't know enough about it to speak to it, but they can definitely get you guys sorted there if you have any questions as well. Cool. Well, I don't see any more questions popping into the chat. So, if there's no more questions, I don't think there's too much more to cover in 4 minutes. So we can probably wrap up. But happy to stay on for the last 4 minutes if there's any lingering questions that we have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully we see you again at another free help. And again, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.